This weekend we have 3 Army Painter Mega Paint sets up for grabs. Get your comments in on any of the Hobby Weekend live blog posts on beatsupport.com for your chance to win.
Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial for Runewars. In this one I'm going to be checking out one of the skeleton warriors here. So under close cam you can see he's quite beaten up looking, and there's a lot of battle damage and scars and stuff in there. And this is going to be quite an interesting model to paint. Now the aesthetic for these guys I'm trying to go for is dark and gritty. So the likes of the other side, which I'm just going to call the good guys because I can't remember the name, they're a lot more bright, there's a lot more colour about them, and the colours that are chosen are quite high contrast and quite bright. So for this one we're going to be looking at quite a low colour palette for this. The lowest levels really are the primer here, and in this case this is Army Painter's Necrotic Flesh, which is the primer I've chosen for this, because looking through the book it looks like it's a necrotic flesh anyway for the bone, but I am going to be highlighting it a bit more and changing a couple of little colours up here and there. So yeah, that's where I'm going to go with that. So the first thing I want to do is get the cloth done, because there's some cloth detail in between the chest and the waist here and this little sort of tabard hanging down. That's going to be my lowest level of colour. I'm just going to make sure I have it so that it's thin enough but still good enough to give me a decent first coat. So let's start in between the chest and the waist here, and we'll start getting that colour in first. So I'm just going to make sure that is all cloth, which it seems to be. And this is basically one of the most vibrant colour being used essentially for the body of this guy. Now there will be other colours. I'm thinking of doing a bit of a glow, a simple glow on the eyes. And I'm just to remind everybody, if you've seen the first one, the idea behind this is to sort of speed paint your Runewars set and make it look okay from, you know, about 3 feet away or something like that. You know, your typical gaming distance. So the idea is to block the colours out, then we wash them down, and then we'll highlight them up again where necessary. Now, because this guy is one of the bad guys, essentially, the highlighting will not be as bright as the other side. So the next colour is going to be one of the browns. Well, it's essentially going to be the brown. And for that, we're going to be doing the wood and the leather. And for that, I'm choosing oak brown. This one's been used before, that's fine. So Roman has been at this one. And using the same brush, I'm now going to go in and start on the shield. I think we'll just paint the wood on the shield. Again, not worrying too much about all the other, the more metal details on it, because we will be coming back to those. Very quickly and carefully get the inside of the shield done too. So start back here. Again, trying to avoid the bone. Alright, now is there any other leather straps I really want to do? He has these sort of, this bracer on his right arm. Yeah, we'll just do that as a leather. And it'll have a metallic sort of rim to it right up at the wrist. And I think maybe just for this piece around the bottom here, I think we'll do that in brown as a leather piece, and then we'll do the studs in maybe a silver or a bronze or something. At this stage, I want to move on to the likes of the metallics and stuff, but I still have other paint that's wet here. So I'm going to take a break, let it dry, and when I come back in a couple of minutes, this should all be dry and I can move on to the metallics. So I'm happy with how the purple in particular is coated, which will all work really nicely when we come to the wash step. Now we need to move on to the metals. So I have 2 metals I'm going to be doing. the first one is going to be for the armor plate and stuff. I'm not going to make these guys very ornate, to be honest, because I just want them to look just rough and dark. So the first one is rough iron. So this looks like a very particularly dark metal, and I think this will work really well. It's almost like a bronzy coppery sort of deep brown metallic. So let's have a look and see how that goes on. And of course, yep, we'll just focus on the armor plate here. So just get stuck in. This is going to be really dark. I was honestly expecting it to look a bit more of a black color, but that sort of very deep coppery bronze color is actually looking pretty good. At this point, we can work it into all the cracks between the shoulder joints on the armor, just to make sure that there's deep color in there. I think once this is highlighted with something that's just a little bit more silver, probably gunmetal, I'm thinking at this point, this should really show up pretty well. Okay, so I know there are a few straps on the back of the greaves, but I'm going to do them after the bone and after the wash as well, just to bring them into a bit more contrast. So now we'll move on to the sort of more bronzy brassy color, and that'll be the last metallic. We're going to use a gunmetal first and just cover the sword blade. This is probably going to be the highlight color for the armor as well, but we can always bring the sword blade up a bit higher than that, so let's just do that quickly as well. So the gunmetal, just going to give the sword blade, and it'll differentiate it a little bit from the armor color as well. Alright, that will do now. We'll now go on to the weapon bronze, and we'll get a few other details painted in as well. So let's just get some of that onto the palette. And what I'm going to try and do here is the likes of the belt buckle, which probably needs a smaller brush, but in the meantime I'm also going to do the sort of cuff pieces, and I've also missed out is chainmail down here. I think we're going to have to do that pretty sharpish too. So let me just get some details in with this. So I'm going to do the rivets on this banding at the bottom. Don't know if that's one or not, but we'll do it anyway. Let's do the belt buckle as well. Too much paint on the brush. Okay, and then there's the other sort of cuff on the shield arm too. So I still have some more gunmetal to add, which I almost forgot about. And that'll do for the mail between or underneath the belt. Sure, there's a few people going, well, why, come on, John, you missed this. You missed this, John. What are you doing? You missed this. I'm like, yes, I know. Sorry. And just get that in now. And having two armor colors is going to help a little bit, because I was initially going to do it all that rough iron, but it just seems, a touch dark. So I think a little bit of steel, sort of gunmetal in here, will help get us a bit more of that differentiation we're looking for. Right, that is now most of the block colours in. The last thing I want to do is add some skeleton bone. So just straight up skeleton bone. And I'm going to use that as a sort of an initial layer over the bone. And then when we come to wash it, it'll get a final layer. Because I really want the actual bone to pop a little bit more than the rest of him. So with a dampish brush in the skeleton bone, I'm going to make sure I thin it out a little bit. Not much though. Make sure that it's actually clean. It doesn't have any other colour through it. Does a little bit, I'll just wash the brush off again. It's mainly because we've been using metallics and they're quite awkward, especially when you're not washing your brush properly and carefully, like I'm not doing right now. So I'll just get a little bit on there. And all I'm going to do is focus the upper areas. So practically like the skull, ignoring that, or at least going around that sort of split in it. And then going down, following the skull line down here, just to keep that other bit in shadow. Gone round. It's just going to be a very simple little layer of the colour just to get a bit of variation in onto the bone. I know this isn't maybe a step that is necessary for a speed paint, but if you do something, a little detail like this, particularly on faces, it really does start to show what you're really capable of, you know, when you come to do, you know, a higher than tabletop sort of thing. And that's essentially it. I'm just wanting to brighten up certain parts of the bone structure. So we're going to let this dry. Again, we're going to let it dry, and when we come back, we'll be applying our wash. Let's get our larger brush and simply just going to start applying it. So we'll start at the top and work our way down. So cover the skull, and you can already see where the highlighting work with the skeleton bone has worked out pretty well. And it is giving a bit of a tonal difference as the wash goes on, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Well, let's just go for it and give the entire figure a coat of this. You can see where that brown, because it's went down a bit thinner and left some of the necrotic flesh coming through, that it has almost pre-highlighted, or pre-shaded, which is kind of cool. I think there won't be a lot of work to do to it once we come to the next step after the wash is dry. Alright, so now it's time to leave it to dry as is. He's really starting to look dark and sinister, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So once this is dry, we'll come back and we'll start to do the little bit of highlights that are going to really make this guy pop. He's really, really dark and really quite sinister looking. I'm very, very happy with how that's turned out so far. Now obviously we still have to do the straps on the back of his greaves there, but I'm just going to do them a solid colour. I'm not too worried about highlighting them so much because it'll just be a nice different colour up there. Do I actually have? Yes I do, that's fine. I have colours for that. So we're on to highlighting, and for this I'm going to be doing just kind of hard edging everything. I'm not going to be doing layers like I did on the Spearman before. So where the Spearman looks very clean with a bit of shading and stuff like that, I want these guys to retain a lot of the effect that the wash has left on them. And for that, we're just going to be doing a lot of hard edging. So the first thing I want to do is work on the cape and the tabard. And because they're in a nice deep purple, the Grimoire purple, the highlight for it is going to be this, and it is Mutant Hue. So it's kind of a pale-esque sort of purple. It's not just as rich as the base purple, and I think it'll suit the highlighting pretty well. So on the palette cam you can see the two colors side by side, and I think this one complements the base color pretty well. And for this I'm just going to use the Psycho brush to do the highlighting on the tabard first. So let's get in here. We're basically following the lines that the thinner undercoat has left through the necrotic flesh. It would almost be good enough as it is, to be honest, but I think something a little higher will work. Let's see. A little bit there, and a little bit there, something like that. Around this side we have that sort of torn edge, so we'll just highlight the lower parts of that and then up. Now if you guys haven't done hard edging before, it really is just a case of the more you practice, the easier it becomes. So don't get too frustrated with yourselves if you do a first attempt and you're not happy with it. Really just concentrate, just do your best, and if you're not happy with it, then you just keep practicing, just keep pushing it. I'll consider the purple done unless I want to... No, do you know what? I think that's fine as a... Nope, tell a lie. I'm going to just highlight this little piece here as well because it feels a little odd that there's nothing on it. So just do that there. And do that there. That sort of draws your attention to this is actually a piece of cloth that has been painted to look like one. So I'll clean my brush off. And I think the next color we're going to go on to is highlighting the leather work. So for that, we're going to be using a fur brown, which is quite a reddy sort of brown color. Very nice color, in fact. And I'm going to be painting the straps on the back of the greaves, as well as highlighting the belt with it. Again, still using the Psycho brush, because it lets me have that really fine point. Now, on the belt, let's start there. You just want to touch the upper parts with any sort of side pieces like that. And on the buckle itself, you gotta just grab that a little bit, and then maybe... No, you don't have to take the top belt's highlight all the way around. I've just taken it under the cape a little bit, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Makes them look a bit like newer leather, but it also keeps the contrast up in there too, with a wider band there like that. We'll come back round to the front and just carry those highlights on over. So that'll go to there, and then this bit will come right over. I'm also maybe just going to do a little bit on the shield, not very much though, because I just want to have a few lines highlighted. So just little bits here and there, just to bring some color in. Right, I think that'll probably do the shield as well. So at this point, we now are going to be moving on to, let me see, the bone, because I'm looking at, I have all the paints laid out in the order I wanted to tackle them. It saves me thinking anymore. It lets me concentrate rather than go, what color do I need next? Anyway, so we're going to move on to the bone, and this is going to be quite a sharp highlight, I think. Maybe not so... Well, yeah, it's going to be roughly what we've just done. Of course, we did the layer of skeleton bone over the necrotic flesh, and at this point we're going to be using some drake tooth, which seems like a rather interesting color, so I wanted to try it out and see if I can get some out like that. And again, using the Psycho brush. And let's start up here on the helmet. Let's see if I can get it into a good focus here, or the head even, not the helmet. So we'll hit the eyebrows first, or the brow first. And that is just going to give us this lovely little glint of light off the skull. And that's actually quite a nice color. Quite happy with that. Let's highlight the knock, the split in the skull. Like so. I think that'll be okay for the skull. So let's look at the bones. Let's look at the joints on the knee in particular. I think this knee right here could do with just a little touch. Like that. I think that should look all right. Round to this other side. We can now do a little bit across here. So a line there, a dot there, and a slightly lopsided blob there. I think that should be okay for that. Now onto the hands and the elbow on the sword arm. So just see we can get a dot there and a bit there as well. And onto the hand. Let's just touch the knuckles. Like so. Do we want to do anything on the inside of the hand? I think not. And then onto the shield. We basically have the thumb and the top finger of the index. And that should do for the bone. And that is starting to look quite striking. To highlight the actual main armor, because we did it in rough iron and it's sort of a browny look, I didn't want to bring the metals up too high. So for this, I'm just shifting over to gunmetal. I already have some on the palette, but I'm just going to liven it up a bit with another drop. Make sure it's all okay. Yep, it's still good. And we're just going to be hard edging the plates. So let's start down on this knee. Say there, and there's 3 spikes on the knee plate. Just want to give them a little touch too, like that. And then down here where I believe it's probably the part of the sabaton, or a top part of it. Not often I get to say that name. And just touch that a little bit, and then the edge of the plate on the foot. I ought to do that. So again, you know, minimalist highlights even on the armor are really going to help keep the guy look pretty dark, but at the same time, you know, the armor's being used, it's moving around. So let's move on to the other knee. More than anything, to just define the shape of that chest plate. If you really want, we can highlight a little bit of the battle damage as well, or the cracks in the plate. So have a look there. Maybe over here. Make them look a little bit more recent than the other ones. And basically let the highlighting show us the shape. A bit there. Again, so that shield looks pretty decent. I'm happy enough with that. Now, highlighting the sword. Because we're using the same color that we originally painted it in, it really is just a matter of deciding what way you want to highlight it. So let's have a look. It's basically cleaning the sword. So let's just edge this piece of it. Again, just ignoring the larger chips that have come out of it. And that just gives it a bit more, you know, it's a worn metal, it's not a ruined metal, so it's not rusty or anything like that. Next one is highlighting the likes of the smaller stuff, so the bronzes that we did earlier, which I cannot remember the color of, but you will remember because you're watching it. And what we're going to be highlighting it with, pardon me, is greedy gold. So greedy gold, by comparison, is very bright, so we'll be using it quite sparingly, which is fine because the areas that we are putting it on are quite small anyway. So down here, we're going to touch the belt buckle first. And all we want to do with the belt buckle is just bring out that top quarter, like so, just to make that really stand out. And the crossguard on the sword as well. Again, just using this side of the sword because we want the other one to stay in shadow. And that'll let us get a little bit of detail out of that too. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Let's move around to the shield because we still have some rivets on there that we can bring up a bit higher. There. I want to talk about eyes. All the art that I've looked on through Runewars and general scope of, you know, undead and stuff like that, purple and greens are a very popular color. I'm not sure if I like that. I'm not sure if I want to go with that or not. I could do, you know, I really could do. I have plenty of greens, but I kind of like the idea of an orange glow. I know it's not very necrotic, it's more pyromancy, but I'm trying to make the decision right now on the fly because I have two colors here. I've got mythical orange and matte white for the eyes. I'm thinking, do I really want to do that, or do I want to go green? I'm going green. I'm changing it up on the fly here, so there we go. This is going to be interesting because I don't know if this is going to work. So I know the color will be fine, but I don't know if the execution of it's going to be fine. So I'm going to take a little bit out from the blob, and I need to water it down and thin it a bit more. Because I have noticed that the figures do have eyeballs, or something like an eyeball in the actual socket. And what I want to try and do is get the green in around that, and then highlight the center of the eye white. So this is going to be interesting. See how consistent the paint is. I'll work it right in there. It needs to be heavier, so let's not use the thinnest bit of paint that we have. That looks about right to me. But what I'm going to do is, because that's fairly watered down paint, I'm going to let it dry for a couple of minutes. I'll come back and I'll see what we can do with the eyes. Alright, I've had a thought about the eyes. Now that I've got the green in and it's dry and it's looking quite good, I think I want to go in the center of the eyes. I want to go quite bright. So I have two paints to pick this out. First up is a very high sort of yellow. This is Arid Earth. They're a very sort of sandy, bright yellowy sort of color. And I want to just decant some of that out. And again, using the Psycho brush, I want to get the actual eyeballs. So this might be a little bit of a problem to show you guys, but here we go anyway. It does look like I'm sort of just painting half of the eye in, which is, oh, that's alright. Well, it's in. I'm not sure if I'm convinced, but it is there. So you know, I'm maybe not overly sold on that. You could obviously just leave it with the wash in there and maybe just get the center eyeballs and do them white or green or something. But I wanted to try that, and it gives you guys something to comment about below. So let's have one last look around the model. Let's ignore the eyes for now. I'm not totally sold on that. But the purples, the browns, and the metals, I'm pretty happy with the metals in general. And the shield I'm quite happy with too. That looks pretty good. Really do like how the cape's turned out. And, you know, even the sword has that sort of, you know, worn, old, but still usable sort of look to it. And in general, I think it's quite a handsome little figure now that it's got some paint on it. Again, you can do something else with the eyes, to be honest, guys. That was just a straight up odd experiment I just wanted to try and let you guys talk, you know, discuss it in the comments. How would you guys do a glowy eye effect? Did I completely mess it up? If I did, fair enough. I'll hold my hands up and say that wasn't the best decision. But yeah, I'll hop in the comments too, and we can discuss a couple of things. And again, remember to keep in mind that it's about the speed paint, so you could totally ignore the eyes entirely. But remember, it's about the speed. It's about getting something that will look good from a distance. And with Runewars having very two distinct factions in the box, you know, the good guys all blue and solid and good, and then the skellies, which are a bit more ragged and a bit darker. I think the two of them together will provide an excellent contrast for the contents of the box. So, with that said, thank you very much for watching. Definitely get your comments in below. I want to have a chat with you guys about that, see what you would have done different. I'm sure there's a good few of you out there that are more experienced in speed painting and do it a lot more than I do. So guys, let me know below what you think, and I will see you again in the next one.
This weekend we have 3 Army Painter Mega Paint sets up for grabs. Get your comments in on any of the Hobby Weekend live blog posts on beastofwar.com for your chance to win.